What's going on, guys? This is Jake at thatfitfriend.com, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite training shoes that are a little bit more flat foot friendly. Now, two things to note before I dive into this video is number one, when we're talking about flat feet and which shoes are going to work best, there is a big spectrum here. A lot of different preferences go into this. And so that said, from all the data I've collected through my channel and my review site, a lot of folks with flatter feet typically resonate best with training shoes that have less arch. They don't like a ton of arch poking into their midfoot. It can feel a little bit more off-putting. So all these options tend to have slightly less aggressive arches to them. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to work for every single flat foot, but they can hopefully at least give you more options and better directions for at least trying to see if they work for your foot anatomy. And then number two, something that I think is really important is to not get dogmatic with how we define flat feet and if it's good or bad. There are a lot of opinions on this topic, and honestly, the more we learn about movement and just how dynamic the body is and the structures of the foot are, not all flat feet are necessarily a bad thing. And now there are times, obviously, in cases where you should be a little bit more mindful of a flatter foot, and if that's causing issues up the chain, aka up the body. But in most cases, I would not necessarily try to fix something that isn't broken if you notice that you have a flatter foot, because also we got to think a lot of tests for flat feet are really static. That doesn't always give us the full picture for when we're walking, jumping, lifting, etc. And so that said, I am not going to be your resource that's going to be dogmatic about flat feet. I'm just here trying to provide options for footwear that can be a little bit more flat foot friendly. But that rant aside, let's dive in. All right, the first shoe I want to cover is the Ultra Solstice XT3. A lot of folks know Ultra for their zero drop shoes and their wider toe boxes. This can be an awesome option to go with if you have a wider forefoot and you like a little bit less taper and a light arch support in your training shoes. Also, this shoe has a zero drop, which can be a big perk for those who like a flatter foot position while they train. Now, where's this shoe going to be best served? If you're doing lifting, cross training, and short runs, the Solstice XT3 can make a lot of sense. Now, three pros that come along with this shoe is number one, how flexible it is. The shoe breaks in really fast, has a lot of flexibility, doesn't have the highest stack height, so it does break in pretty dang quick. Number two, it does a really good job for my folks out there who want max toe box room. This shoe works really well for foot widths up to 3 to 4E foot widths, so it can work great for the wider footed folks out there who also have flatter feet as well. And then number three, the breathability of this shoe tends to do a pretty good job for most gym settings. Now, a couple of things to think about with this shoe before you invest is number one, the outsole durability can be a little bit shoddy outdoors, especially on concrete. So if you do a lot of outdoor workouts, keep an eye on this. You might want to go with a different option that has a better tread patterning. And then number two, this is just kind of one of those like little quality of life things that I don't know why Ultra didn't just add in the shoe. There is no gusset with the tongue, so the tongue can slide. If you're OCD like myself sometimes, that can bother, but it's honestly not a huge hindrance for performance. It's more of just like one of those quality of life construction features where I'm like, why didn't you guys just put a little bit of a gusset in this shoe? Next shoe I want to cover is the Flux Adapt Graphene Trainer. Now, this shoe can be an awesome option for folks who want that zero drop shoe for more CrossFit and lifting focused training. This is what I would call the Solstice XT3's like more CrossFit focused cousin, with its wider toe box, zero drop construction, and CrossFit-y focused build. Now, three pros that come along with this shoe is the breathability of the upper. The upper in the shoe is very lightweight, so it breathes pretty dang well in most gym settings. Number two, you have a full rubber tread patterning, so if you want as much grip as possible, this shoe's outsole does a pretty good job at giving you bite on a lot of different surfaces. And then number three, the midsole in this shoe does a pretty dang good job at giving you stability with versatility. So we have a lot of flexibility with this shoe, and the midsole is not so stiff like other CrossFit shoes out there that run a little bit too dense to make them really versatile. So this shoe does a pretty good job at walking that fine line between both of those worlds of versatility and stability. And so now some things to think about with this shoe is number one, honestly, the price point is just kind of high for what this shoe has to offer. In my opinion, if you can, look around for a coupon and knock the price down for this shoe because it's just priced a bit too high for what it is, in my lowly opinion. Number two, the upper construction, while it is super lightweight and breathable, it does have a bit of like a crunchy feel to it at times. I don't always necessarily love that at the toe break, but I do think that's going to be an acquired taste thing, and different foot anatomies will fill out the forefoot and midfoot differently than me. And then number three, you do have the bumpy and ridged Flux insole that they use in a lot of their shoes. I personally don't love it, so I swap that out when I'm training in this shoe because it gives me a better feel. I slide around a little bit with this insole, so food for thought there. If you do invest in this shoe, you may want to swap that insole out if you're also not a big fan of that bumpier, more slick insole that's used in this shoe. The next shoe I'm going to cover is the Victus Core Containment. Now, this shoe is going to be best served for those who do a little bit of lifting, CrossFit, want a shoe for daily wear, and they like a bit of light arch support in their shoe. Honestly, I feel like this shoe is rather slept on for what it is in the flat foot / wide foot friendly cross-training shoe world. Now, some pros that come along with this shoe is its feel on the foot. The shoe does a really good job with its medium density midsole at giving you enough stability to train heavy, but also not feeling so stable to where you lose complete versatility with your workouts. The second pro that comes along with this shoe is the outsole tread and its grip. This model's herringbone tread grips really well, and with the grooves up here in the forefoot, you get a lot of bite. So for example, if you train on turf a lot and you do a lot of more functional style training, this shoe can be a really good option to go with because it's going to give you a lot of bite. The third thing to like with this shoe is the upper construction and its security. The upper of this model runs a little bit heavier, so it does lack some breathability, but when it comes to overall security, it does a pretty good job. Now, some things to keep in mind with the Victus core containment is number one, the upper can have some durability issues at times. With these TPU overlays and these textile overlays, you can have peeling. I have not had that issue yet, but I have had some folks report on issues with that. And then number two, the boot of this shoe can come up pretty high on the Achilles and rub and cause some irritation. So you might want to work this with your fingers when you're breaking the shoe in. And then just as like another thing to consider, you might want to swap the laces out as well, because the lacing in this model is interesting and the laces can run a little bit long in my opinion. So you might want to swap them out for something shorter or a lace that's just a little bit less bulky and a little bit less heavy feeling. The next shoe I want to cover is the Under Armour Tri-Base Rain 6. This shoe is going to be best for anybody who wants a shoe for cross training, CrossFit lifting, and some casual wear. This model does a really good job across the board and in my opinion is slept on by a lot of folks. Three things to like with this shoe is number one, the outsole grip and its aggressive nature. This shoe does a really good job gripping a lot of different surfaces. You also have that Tri-Base tech here in the midfoot for additional stability if you like that for lateral training. Number two is the feel of the drop-in midsole. This drop-in midsole runs a little bit softer, so it gives you a bit more bounce and cushion when you're jumping, when you're doing short runs, and when you're doing more power-focused lifts, but it is stable enough to train pretty dang heavy, so it does give you a good feel when you're training. And then number three, the upper construction of this shoe does a pretty good job regarding breathability and overall durability. Very rarely have I seen any complaints on the upper of this shoe. It just feels very well built. Now, a few things to think about with this model is number one, with that drop-in midsole, it is going to be a little bit of a hit or miss for folks. If you like a little bit more of a traditional midsole with your shoe and a bit more of a stable feel under the foot, you will want to consider that with this model. And then number two, it can run a little bit heavy. So if you want a lighter weight shoe, this might also be a model that you want to pass on because the heel can feel a bit heavy at times in this model and it's just a bit more bulky when it's on the foot. The next shoe is a little bit of a curveball, but it's the Xero Shoes X1. Now this is Xero's basketball focused shoe. Now, why did I include it in here? It has a thin midsole, so it does give you a little bit more cushion and protection, so you're not going straight on barefoot with your training. It's also very versatile and honestly works great for cross training and lifting if that is something that you want. And if you like a slightly more sporty feel with your shoe and higher boot, that is also a win with this model. Now, some things to like with this shoe is number one, its range in the gym. Like most court-focused shoes, basketball shoes, just sport-focused shoes in general, this model does a really great job at lifting, cross-training, jumping, short runs, cutting, sprinting, etc. If you need a shoe for athletic-focused training, the X1 is awesome. Number two, because this model is a barefoot-esque kind of shoe, it has a zero drop construction. So if you like a flatter feel with your shoe and you want a denser feel at that, this model can make a lot of sense. And then number three, the upper security on this model is awesome. You also have a slightly higher boot, so it does give you additional protection if you like having additional boot support and just really a hug around that ankle when you're doing lateral work, lifting, whatever it might be in the gym. Now, a few things to think about with this shoe is number one, it is pretty expensive for what it is as well. This is going to be one of the more costly shoes in this list. And then number two, the breathability of the upper is not the best. Because it is a basketball focused shoe, it does have a slightly heavier upper, so you know that's going to come at the cost of some breathability, so you'll want to keep that in mind if you're training in hotter climates. The next shoe I want to cover is the Born Primitive Savage 1. Now, this shoe is going to be best for anybody who wants a shoe primarily for lifting and CrossFit. And if you just like a lower stack in your training shoe in general, this can be also a good option to look into. Now, three things to like with the Savage 1 is number one, the low stack height in this shoe gives you a ton of ground feel. So it does have a 4mm drop, so it's not necessarily a barefoot shoe or a minimalist shoe, so you will have a bit of heel, but because it does have a lower stack height and a denser midsole, you're going to get a lot of ground feel for your lifting and your training. So if you love that in the gym, you'll resonate with the shoe in that regard. Number two, the durability of the shoe tends to be pretty great across the board. The upper of the shoe tends to rarely have breakdown issues. The outsole very rarely breaks down as well because the lugs down here are more aggressive, and you have a nice structured boot back here, so you don't get a ton of breakdown and folding at the boot. And then another thing to like with this shoe is if you like a ton of flexibility with your training shoes, this can be a great option to go with. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind with the Savage savage one is number one, the tongue can be annoying. Now the cheat code with the tongue, because it is a thinner mesh and it can cause some rubbing, is where this loop is right now with the crossed laces. Bring the loop up here to the fourth crossing on your laces and it'll actually help pull that tongue up and make it less annoying. So just food for thought there if you notice that that's rubbing on you. It doesn't happen to everybody, but because it's a thin mesh tongue, it can press into the top of the foot. So you'll want to do that if you notice that right away. And then number two, if you notice that you don't necessarily love how the medial side of the shoe feels, try taking out this insole and swapping it with a different insole. Because we have this dual texture, this medial arch can press a little bit into the midfoot. So if you want a slightly flatter feel with this shoe, try swapping out the insole. I'm telling you, it could be a game changer for you because it'll also give the upper a little bit more volume and a different fit on the foot. Final shoe I want to cover is the Noble Impact. So this is more of like the lifting / hit focus shoe from Noble. It can work really well on those verticals if you like a lot of structure to your shoe. Now, three things to like with this model is number one, the aggressive tread patterning. This model has a very thick herringbone tread, so it does a really good job of gripping different surfaces, especially turf if you're training a lot on turf or even on rubber gym floors where you need a lot of bite. Number two, if you like more structure with your midsole, this can be a good option to go with. This model has a slightly higher stack height. The midsole is a little bit stiffer, so if you like more structure with your shoe, that's where this shoe can make a lot of sense. And then number three, the upper construction tends to do a pretty good job with security and overall lockdown. This is the super fabric. They haven't changed it in years, and that's for a reason. It does a pretty good job regarding the overall structure, durability of it, and it's pretty dang easy to clean, which is also a perk. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind with this shoe is number one, it is a little bit stiff and it doesn't break in super fast. So if you want max flexibility, you'll want to consider that with this model. And then number two, the upper just doesn't breathe that well. If you've worn Noble shoes, you know they probably run hot. So you'll want to consider that with this shoe for those who train in hotter climates. All right, guys, that wraps up this roundup covering some of my favorite training shoes for flatter feet. Hopefully this video gives you suggestions on better models to try. Again, with flat feet, a lot can go into which shoe is gonna feel best for you, so you might have to plug and play a little bit with these, but hopefully they at least shift you in the right directions to be looking for your next gym shoe pickup. If you have additional questions on any of the shoes featured in this video, drop a comment down below.